Hi folks, just rolling over the hour now, so we'll get our lunchbox underway. Hopefully you're all settled in with a sandwich and a drink for the session today, looking at the trends in digital commerce. We've got Paul Butter along today. I'm very lucky to have him join us for the session, and thanks to UXC Eclipse as the sponsor for today's session. Just introducing myself, I'm Hayden McCall. I run iStart Technology and Business Tech Publisher, and we run these lunchbox sessions every month or so if you're joining us for the first time. Just run through a little bit of housekeeping in terms of running the session. Really keen to have lots of questions and answers in from the audience. We'll have a good period of time for Q&A at the end of the session, so we'll hopefully get to all of your questions, but a few come in through the registration process, so we'll deal with those as well. But if you see in your little sidebar with the GoToMeeting, there's a pane with questions on it. If you open up, hit the plus beside the questions, open that up, and where it says enter a question for staff, just type away in there with any of your queries. Just on the housekeeping front, as people are still coming in the door, I see there's no need for note-taking as we go through the presentation. We're recording this right now, so that will be sent out via email in 24 hours after the session. Main presentation is around about 30 minutes once I get my kerfuffle out of the way. And so plenty of time, sort of 20-25 minutes of Q&A, and we'll wrap up inside the hour. And just to keep those questions flowing in as you think of them, and we'll address those as we go. And yes, a reminder, there is a free lunch today for those of you who have been good enough to attend. There's an exit survey that goes out if you're not sure about the correct mailing address. We actually have to mail these out, so if you just make sure you've got the right mailing address there, and we'll send that out to you. And there's a $10 lunch voucher for Sumo Salad in Australia and for Subway in New Zealand. Okay, so introducing Paul. Paul Butter is a very well-known commentator on particularly the telecommunications industry. He's got a global network of research through a number of analysts around the world through his business called Buttercom. He has specialised in does a lot of work with governments around the world, particularly in the telecommunications area, but I gather from his more recent research he is looking at more business implications of those trends going on, and so we're looking at it from today, the perspective of e-commerce and m-commerce. But Paul has a background consulting into the United Nations, Netherlands, Australia, New Zealand governments, among a number of others. He's chipped in at the White House and at the UN, so he is eminently qualified joining us today. G'day Paul, how are you?
Fantastic, Hayden. I'm looking forward to an interactive session with the audience today.
Excellent. All right, so let's just crack into doing that. We'll pass over the controls to you, Paul, and you can run the presentation from your end to keep things easy. I'm just doing that now. So just bear with us, and we should see Paul's screen pop up shortly. Yep, looks good. All right, the floor is yours, Paul.
There. Okay, thank you very much, Hayden, for the introduction, and a warm welcome to you all. Hayden already mentioned some of my background. Basically, I think what's important for today as well is that my background is marketing. I'm not an engineer, and I've been looking for the last 30 years at what you can do with new technology. So what are the business opportunities for organizations, either to extend their product range or their service range or their geographic range by the use of these new technologies. So telecommunications, ICT in general, of course, is critical in a number of issues, and quite often what I what I mention is that I can't solve world hunger with ICT, but I can also very clearly say that you will not be able to get rid of global poverty and global hunger without ICT. So ICT is a critical utilities-based infrastructure that is required throughout our societies, throughout our economy. It's critical for digital productivity, it's critical for e-health, for education, as well as for entertainment and for the lifestyle that modern day people enjoy. At the same time, you know, it is this globalization and this democratization of the technology that is offering another major contribution to developments. For example, you know, you can be penniless, live in Yemen, get access to a library or whatever, an office, and you can actually have a chat on the internet. You have access to information. Yes, if you have the money, you can build nice websites, but you know, if you don't have the money, quite a lot of people with a little YouTube can also reach the world. So there are really massive changes that are facilitating by the ICT developments that are happening around the world. Now, before I go into e-commerce and m-commerce, I think it's very important to first of all take a step backwards and start looking at what is this all about. What I just mentioned, these global trends, what it's all about. Now, first of all, it's very clear that through this technology, it's the customer that's now in the driver's seat. And you see that in many aspects of our society, you know, that people are online. You've got online petitions, you've got online YouTubes that within hours can reach millions of people. You can have, you know, look at the Arab Spring, you know, where people, not necessarily as customers, but as individual citizens, take control over certain aspects of their life, of your life. So you really, it's quite different from the situation, let's say 5, 10, 15 years ago, where governments could dictate what you would do. Large newspaper organizations could dictate what you could view. Large retailers could dictate what you, what price you have to pay. You know, large broadcasters that, you know, could dominate the entertainment world. So you really see that that level of control is going to be slowly passed over to the customers, to the consumers, to citizens, to voters, whatever you want to call us as people in the area. So I think that is very important. So in any business model and in any discussions that you have with your customers, you know, you increasingly you will have to start taking that into account. You know, that you can give the customer an advice. You know, the next thing that will happen, that customer will go to a computer, check it out, and find out if what you were saying is what he believes is true, or he gets a second opinion or a third opinion, and you know, go to somebody else. So you know, it really is that new environment that you have to be very much aware of in any business that you operate nowadays. As I already mentioned, the marketplace is no longer local, but is global. Yeah, we notice that very much in situations where people are now shopping online. Amazon is seen as the greatest threat to local department stores in countries all over the world. Yeah, so it's no longer, you know, who is the biggest supermarket or the biggest department store in my country, and there might be 2 or 3 of those chains. You know, suddenly companies such as Amazon are being a direct competitive threat to any other department store anywhere else in the world. And that of course also applies to a lot of the products that you guys are selling. You can buy these for very low prices in Korea, in Japan, in Singapore. I mean, the Korean government has lowered international postal prices to make teleshopping from Korea cheaper, in relation to postal charges. So you can, for a few dollars, you can actually now send parcels from Korea all over the world. So that shows you how some countries are taking a lead in that global e-commerce and mobile m-commerce in relation to stimulating their own economies to participate in that international marketplace. Finding the best deal is now so easy, and everybody is on the computer, and particularly the younger generations. Anybody under the age of 40 is a digital native and will feel very comfortable with comparing prices, understanding what's happening, and have a good understanding also of technology. The older generation still, of course, are a little bit wary about technology, but anybody under 40 can be a digital native. On the other side, what you typically see in people that don't feel comfortable with technology, they have kids, they have friends, they have family, they have neighbors that are more than happy to assist. So you really see a change in that respect to in relation to the development of commerce in that particular area. If you miss the boat, then you're in trouble, because we've seen that with companies like Kodak, with companies like Nokia, with BlackBerry, with retailers, with book companies. I mean, you see it's all around you that if you are sticking to your old business model, you are going to be in big trouble. And the big thing with the digital economy models, it's taking cost out of the economy. That is the biggest sort of thing, that by utilizing digital models, you can actually take cost out of the back office operation, out of your sales and marketing, out of all of the call it the non-tangible, the non-physical elements of your product. That's where you can take cost out. You don't have to store any products anymore. With the relationship that you have with your customers, things can be shipped from any warehouse, anywhere in the world, to your customers. The customer relationship that you have is the most critical one. All other elements can be in another way, can be built in a different business model. So that lower cost is the biggest sort of area. What's driving all of this is, of course, the digital productivity, and that is why countries around the world, and in my work with United Nations and with the governments of New Zealand and Australia, looking at national broadband network, fiber networks, I had a whole discussion yesterday with the radio stations in New Zealand regarding the UFB and the consequences and the importance that the government in New Zealand sees the UFB as a digital productivity element, and that's why you have to facilitate that. 160 countries around the world now have national broadband plans, simply because of the reason that they believe that digital productivity is critical to the future of their economy, and therefore they will have to facilitate utilities that enable the country to become more digital productive. I think that cloud computing is perhaps the most destructive element in all of that. We had a bit of a wait and see moment a year ago, but in the last 6 months, cloud computing has taken off in massive ways, and simply the economic elements are pushing for it. In some situations you can reduce your ICT costs by 80% by utilizing cloud computing. Now, if you are heavily relying on information, such as government, such as banks, then obviously you have to go to cloud computing in order to stay competitive. So that is really a critical issue in that whole development, whole technologies, cloud computing. And cloud computing offers you infrastructure as a service, software as a service. Only yesterday, PACnet, an Asian-based infrastructure company, announced infrastructure as a service. So whenever you need infrastructure, you can just tap on. You don't have to have other relationships. You can just use that particular infrastructure on an as-needed basis. So you really start seeing totally different models around the ICT developments, telecommunications, IT, in relation to to the future. And basically the key element is ICT is utilities. So don't try and get premium prices out of that, what has been tried for before. You have to be realistic about that. Everything in cloud computing, in data centers, in M2M, in broadband is utility. Where the value add is on top of it. So if your company is involved in this utility, then either you have to compete on price, or you have to start looking at value-added services for your customers that you can charge extra for, where they come to you and ask for your services. So customer service is absolutely critical in this new environment, because only if you have good customer service will you be able to start looking at value-added and premium sort of prices. E-retailing is clearly coming into its own, but I think what we are seeing now, it's called omni-channel retailing. It's not just being a retailer. We see that these e-retailers are opening shops, showrooms. You see it with Google, with Samsung, with Apple. All these e-retailers are now going to the next phase and are making sure that they have a presence in the countries, physically in the countries as well. So it's M-retailing, it's E-retailing, it's brick and mortar, it is telephone, it's everything that has to be taken into account in this new retailing environment. So it's very much a combination of all of that you will have to look at when you're involved in retailing to your customers. In-store e-commerce, that is going to become one of the big sort of development areas where customers are coming into the shop, have their smartphone or their tablet with them, want to have information while they are walking in your shop, walking around, and start looking at products, either through your QR codes or any other way, get access to extra background information. And also be aware that customers in your store will then at the same time look at other websites. They see a product or a service that you have to offer. They quickly check online if there's anything else that's cheaper, better, or whatever. Be aware of that and anticipate that customers are looking at competitive sites while they are in your store. So it really is important to take that into account and to start looking at how your model, your business model, your customer service model anticipates these in-store e-commerce activities, these omni-channel activities. Should you look at others and start looking at creating fixed stores, brick and mortar stores as showrooms, whatever. Yeah, this is a whole changing environment. Basically, what I'm saying is, you have to be aware of it, and you have to take that into account. The over-the-top services, which basically is utilizing that cloud facility, these over-the-top services are also creating more channels for yourselves, but also for others, of course, to reach customers in a very cheap way. Look at the apps, look at internet services, look at sharing the retail, the entrepreneurial sort of sites that you find on the internet. Where people can start up a business on the internet with the help of organizations around them. There will be lawyers, there will be accountants, and things like that. People will be able to use more channels to reach their customers wherever they are in the world and wherever they are basically physically. So are they shopping around with a mobile phone, are they in their office, are they in their home, etc. So these over-the-top services that are offered by cloud computing internet companies, Google and Facebook and Amazon and others, have a look at that if that is something that fits your model as well. So people will browse, compare, and shop from home. It really is a revolution that's happening that you have to take into account. And think smartphone. That is the device that customers are using mostly. I mean, they might be sitting behind a computer for a longer time, but the smartphone is their most personal piece of equipment, their most treasured piece of equipment. It's also the most used IT product used by women. Women are using smartphones more than men. 67% of women will say, I can't live without my smartphone. 47 of men will say that. So really, if you want to reach women in your activities, then think smartphone, with exclamation marks behind it. You'll get location-based services, you get M2M, machine-to-machine, where sensors are going to provide further information to customers in all sorts of different ways. Person-to-person payments are going to be possible with PayPal, so you can basically bypass banks, you can bypass shops and things like that. So all of these are critical in your assessment of where this market is going and how you're going to participate. So how are you going to move forward in this particular area? For heaven's sake, forget about rearguard battles. Too many companies are trying to protect their existing business model, their existing business, and starting to avoid going into this new direction of e-commerce and m-commerce. It is really, really important that you be upfront, that you are going to be there where the customers are taking you. You cannot protect your old business from the sort of elements that I've been just talking about. Look at the publishers, look at the telephone companies, look at the music industry, look at the book industry. They're all fighting rearguard battles, So it really is important that you avoid that trap and that you are looking at the future. That's not to say that you have to abandon your existing business. By all means, no, absolutely not. Look at who your customers are. Your customers are your most precious assets. Who are they? Where are they? What are they doing? How can you serve them better by the use of new technologies that are encroaching upon us? So it's not a matter of abandoning, your brick and mortar model and suddenly become an e-retailer. That's not going to work. It really becomes a matter of how you can best service your customers. You are the organization, you should be the organization who know your customers best, and you should therefore, with your knowledge of what's available in the market, you should be able to track your path forward into this new environment. So the sectors that are resisting transformation are going to be left behind. We see that, take for example telecommunications, where, for example, I remember that Saul Trujillo, previous boss of Telstra in Australia, in 2005-06 said Google Smoogle, yeah. Now, if you look at the census business, the electronic directories, the yellow pages from Telstra, it's a dismal business at the moment. They lost the fight with Google. They lost the fight on smartphones with Apple. Apple, Google, they are the value-added companies. The Telstras of this world, the Telecom New Zealands of this world, they are the utility operators and they are the pipe operators. So you really have to be careful that if you don't want, there's money to be made in the pipe. You can be an ICT utilities provider, no problem whatsoever. But then at that point in time, put your business model into on a utilities basis. You look at low returns on your capital, 5, 6, 7%. If you are, and that's fine if you can build business models around it. But then it's about mass market, it's about large volumes, it's about low cost. And if you want to move beyond that, you have to look at value added. Big new areas of transformation are in healthcare, education and smart grids. These sectors are running behind. If you have connections to that sort of sectors, then you will see that they will have to move forward. They have been left behind on the superhighway, and if they're not careful, they will be road killed. Others will take that, like Google did and Facebook did and Apple did. Others will move into that market. Healthcare is one of the biggest industries in the world. It's one of the most old-fashioned industries of the world. It's one of the most costly industries of the world. We cannot afford healthcare going forward the way it's happening now. It will have to be transformed. So there are plenty of opportunities in that particular area. Energy, with smart grid, electricity networks, exactly the same. They are dinosaurs. They need to be upgraded. Again, there are plenty of opportunities in home gateways and issues like that, where you start seeing new opportunities offering for companies such as yourself moving into that area. money is not the key issue. It are the social and economic changes that are far more important. You know, it is, you know, if you build a broadband network, for example, in Australia, they have calculated that you can save $30 billion in healthcare costs over a 10-year period if you could move to e-health. So the savings in healthcare alone could just simply finance the whole building of a broadband network in a country like Australia. And every single country will have exactly the same sort of opportunities and the same sort of issues. So it is a matter of looking at where are the new social and economic changes, what are they causing, where are the new markets, where are the new savings, who then are most likely to spend money in moving into that particular direction. That's where your opportunities are. I didn't mention retail, but if you also look at many of the retail outside your own retail, you know, in retail in general, that obviously is another area where massive investments are taking place in getting these organizations up to scratch in relation to the new developments. So if you talk about e-commerce and m-commerce, it's all about being smart. Yeah, smart in your contact with your customers. Yeah. And that is one of the, I can't stress that more enough, you know, if you have a good relationship, trust relationship with your customers are not running away, you know, because they get something for $5 or $10 cheaper, yeah. If it's 50% cheaper, hey, you know, have to be careful. But you know, if you've got a trustworthy relationship with your customers, then you can, that's your most valuable assets. And again, you know, with the possibility that you don't have to store all the products yourself, you can be the middleman to the customer to find the cheapest product if you are in this ICT utilities-based sort of environment. You know, you can do that, and as I mentioned, it can be shipped from any warehouse anywhere in the world. So change your business model to, if that is necessary, to create and make sure that you've got that highly personalized contact with your customers. And technology nowadays makes that possible. You know, it's no longer prohibitive to have that personalized contacts with your customers. Personalized contact means email 1, messages 2, social media 3, voice 4. That is currently the way that customers are interacting with us. So once again, first email, 2 social media, messaging, 3 social media, 4 voice. Totally different from 5 or 10 years ago, you know, where the telephone was more important than anything else. So you have to create that high level of customer and environment intelligence. You know, you have to face that. You have to realize that is where your new environment is. You are no longer the only one that the customer is going to. You know, that is this new environment. What you also need to make sure is that you can gather and utilize that data, you know, that is happening. Not only you, but your customers that are using your ICT equipment. You know, what are they doing? They're gathering data, they are then storing the data, and they are analyzing that data in real time to give you that opportunity to make decisions on the spot, to take action on the spot, etc. So that is really the new smart way that is happening in the broader context of what's happening in the ICT. So in the broader context of the ICT, you know, if you're in healthcare, doesn't really matter. You know, you need to gather data and not those paper-based, you know, kilometers-long paper files that hospitals and doctors have. No, that needs to be captured in an electronic format, then it needs to be stored, and that's stored, and then you need to analyze that information. That is the larger business. In your organization, on a micro scale, exactly the same. You have to organize yourself that you can capture the information of your data, store it, analyze it, and take action. You know, it's not just having the data, it's how to take action, of course. That is the most important element of it. So data analytics is becoming one of the hottest jobs in the ICT industry at the moment. There's a huge shortage of data analytic people. People can, you know, machines can gather data, machines can store data, but analyzing data requires people to interpret that information. Really the hot job in town at the moment. So what are the new technologies that are facilitating all of this? I already mentioned it. I want to recap them. Of course, it's our national broadband networks, both fixed and wireless. And the national broadband networks will have to be fiber in the developed economies, at least in the short term, next 5 to 10 years. Other countries will follow, automatically after that. But you already see in my work, for example, with Rwanda, where the government in Rwanda is saying, that if you build fiber optic between mobile towers, we want you to also connect hospitals and schools that are laying in that path. So you really see that even in other countries that don't have the economic advantages we have, that fiber is already encroaching big time. M2M, machine-to-machine, sensors, devices, the whole gathering of information, the Internet of Things. The next big thing in telecommunications, the first thing was to have a telephone in every house. We did that in the 60s, 70s and 80s. Then, the next revolution was a mobile phone in our pockets, and that then tripled or quadrupled the amount of telephone connections. Now the telephone connections or the communications connections will be sensors and devices, and you will literally talk about billions of connections that are going to be being connected to the network, and in one way or another, be it customers, sensors and devices, that is going to be critical input in your business and in the business of your customers. I mentioned cloud computing, where all of this information is going to be processed in the IT sort of world, how it gets stored and processed, and then data centers are the main vehicles for that, and data analytics as well. I mean, the whole NSA spy scandal is only going to increase the level of sophistication in data centers, in cloud computing, in analytics and M2M. It's unstoppable. It's going to happen, but the lesson learned is that you have to be, the lessons learned from NSA, from the spying scandal, is that both countries and companies will have to put far more emphasis on security, on safety, on privacy. So there will be an enormous amount of activity happening in that particular area. Okay, so in concluding, before I open the floor to questions, what we need to create is smart businesses, and smart businesses, is that it is driven by people power, as I mentioned. We have to follow the customers. It's no longer a static situation. Here we are as a business and customers come to us. We have to look where customers are going. And if they are using phones, if they're using messaging, if they are using whatever they use, that's where you have to be. Wherever they shop, that's where you have to be. If they don't shop in your physical shop anymore, where are they going? That's where you have to be it online, be it somewhere else, So follow your customers, yeah? Look where your customers are and then use what they are using, internet, apps, smartphone, tablets, etc., to communicate and connect with them. Transformation, business transformation is essential. We've seen already too many casualties on the superhighway. We have to avoid it, and particularly you will have to avoid that in your business, that you are not going to be a casualty there. So you really have to make sure that you transform. That's painful. Transformation is painful. People don't like change. Yeah? The companies don't like change. Companies like to look after their shareholders, and the shareholders are looking at past performances and are very scary of moving into new business models that are not yet proven. Yet if you don't do it, you also see what happens in that particular area if you miss the boat. So, it's painful, but you have to get sector transformation, industry and business and sector transformation. If your company requires that, you will have to make sure that things like that are happening. It has to be driven from the top. It's no use that somebody down on the ground floor says this company will have to transform. It will have to be on that CEO level that this needs to be driven, and it's very important and critical that that sort of process are going to happen. Digital productivity, I mentioned that several times. We have to take costs out of the economy, and you can do that by all the technologies that I've mentioned, the national broadband network, cloud computing, M2M, data centers. They are critical in creating the right environment for you and for your businesses to enable you to participate in the digital economy and taking that cost out. Outsourcing models, we have to get rid of complexity. There's too much complexity in our business. Wherever you can take it out, take it out. Integration, all of that, will require outsourced models. As for example, mentioned, you don't have to store all your products yourself. Look at other models where it's possible to use others. It's not if, but when things are happening. It's a matter you can, as I mentioned, those rearguard battles, you can fight them, but eventually you will face the brick wall, you will face the tsunami. It's much better to be smart and to preempt what's happening. Others will be more than happy to take over your position, as we saw in telecommunications with Google. If you see, companies like Apple, Amazon, these are the companies that are more than happy to step in any business that is becoming roadkill on the superhighway. These changes will take 3 to 5 years, so you don't die overnight, but you have to start now in order to make sure that you are on the right side of the story in the developments of e-commerce and m-commerce. So I hope that I've been able to give you some information, some food for thought, perhaps some tips for yourself and for your organization, and where things are going. And Hayden, I would now like to hand back to you and open it up for questions.
Great. Thank you very much, Paul. Enlightening presentation and enjoyed that immensely. And some good questions coming in from the floor. So we'll crack into those. Folks, if you do have questions, just open up the questions pane on your little sidebar and type away in there just with any of your questions. I'll pose one that came in as you spoke from Greg. Just mentioning, as you went through, the resistance to change that is out there. There's a lot of rearguard actions going on. What do you see as the main things that you can put in place to overcome the resistance, and what do you see that's going on out there where people are successfully getting on and making change happen?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, Greg, the situation is that it has to be driven from the top. If people at the coalface see these changes and want to make changes, but the company, for example, in protecting what it's quite often what the phrase that's used, protecting shareholders' value, yeah. And obviously, if you go from one business model to another business model, then you see that, for example, look at publishing books, telecommunications. What is happening? That the new business model makes it possible to lower the cost for customers. So customers are paying less for the same service that they did a couple of years ago. And that, of course, is very painful for companies because they depend on that income. And if they suddenly see that their income is 20, 30, 40% less, then they are very fearful of their future. So the whole situation is that people resist the change simply to that is what the problem is. So if you are only when you are on the top end of your organization, only if you are the CEO, if you are the CTO, etc. So that is the management team that have to start the transformation. Obviously, other people can start pointing to that direction, but unless there is an enlightened management team that understands the changes and can manage it. As I mentioned, it's a 3 to 5 year process. So you're not breaking down your business today. No, you start changing, you keep your old business going for as long as possible. At the same time, you start building the new business models that are securing your future. So, it's that sort of process. It is the top of the organization that needs to be convinced and need to convince the shareholders that these changes are essential. I think banks are doing a good job at the moment, with e-banking. For a long time, they resisted e-banking. And now suddenly, they are leaders in e-payments and m-payments and e-banking and what have you. So you see some good examples coming out of the market. But the best examples, of course, are for some companies, unfortunately, of course, companies like Amazon, like Facebook, like Skype, like Google. Look what these companies are doing. They are coming with the latest new applications, and that is also close eye on them. When there are new applications that you can use coming from those companies, as I mentioned in those over-the-top models into cloud computing, look at what they are doing and see where you can join them. Quite often for low cost you can join them, and you can then ride on their back into the future of new developments.
Yeah, great. So another question, and there's a couple of themes come through. There was one in registration, another one from Peter, and it talking about the omni-channel capabilities and establishing that, I guess, at a micro level within the organisation. Is that something that's it's a systems replacement? Start again from scratch and modernise across the board, take everything to the cloud and get up to the current play with all of your technology? Or is there a smaller incremental steps? Do you see that success coming from which approach?
I think that what I always advise to my customers is look at your current customers. Who are your customers? Where are your customers? How are you interacting with your customers? Where is your success? Yeah. Why are customers coming to you? Yeah. So take that as the very first. Don't look at the future. Don't look at other models. No. First, look at your own model. Once you understand that correctly, yeah, and you have to be realistic about that, don't talk yourself up in that situation, yeah. If you are losing customers at the moment, then you have to ask questions. But if your customers are coming back positively, then look at your current model. Now, let's say, for example, you have a shop. You've got a window shop somewhere in the main street, somewhere, in one of the suburbs or one of the cities, yeah. Then that's your starting point, Then you start looking at, okay, how can I, and of course, presuming that that's a successful business. So you use that successful business to start looking at how can I bring new technologies in my existing environment. I mentioned already in-shop e-commerce. Yeah. So can you facilitate through QR codes, through simple applications that you make available for smartphones, that people walk into your business and are invited, to go to a Wi-Fi network that you run in your shop, and people can go to, to see what's happening in your shop, give you a guide to what's happening on the various aisles or various corners in your shop. So that's an opportunity. And at the same time, when they're on your Wi-Fi network, you can obviously give them some advice. You can provide some in-store information, where are the specials and what have you. So that's a possibility when you have a successful shop. If you, on the other hand, are a successful e-retailer and you don't have a physical shop where people are coming to, yeah, then start thinking about, is there any interest in, for example, creating that? As I mentioned, companies like Google, Apple, Sony, from the already for a long time, where they have that sort of shops where it's not necessarily how to sell massive amount of products, but confronting people with products and services, having the possibility to have personal contact, and again, showcase some of the services that you are doing. So it depends of where you are, how successful you are now, and then start looking from your current situation, take your current situation, and then start looking at that omni-retailing. What can I add to that? Yeah, and if you are dealing with an older public, you might have to start also looking at voice-based services. And what can you do in that particular area? Yeah, so there are different solutions for different situations, but you have to open up your whole scala of opportunities. Most of the people that I'm talking to today are people that are experts in ICT. So we are the experts that actually can look at the products and services that I've been talking about. Can we use cloud computing? Can we use apps? Can we use all of these location-based facilities? Can we use them to our own advantage, yeah, to build the business, to extend the business that we now have with these new devices into other areas? Now then, over 3 or 5 years' time, you then review that and say, do I still need my physical shop? Do I change my physical shop? Do I expand that? or is now everything going online, what I'm doing? I can't predict that. Then you actually start based on following your customers, learning from your customers, opening up your business models, then on a year-by-year basis start making decisions in what direction you are going to be. There's no way that you can predict it now. There's no best model. Yeah, it is all depends on your personal business that you now have, the personal relationship that you have with your customers, and where the market is taking us. I mean, who had predicted things like smartphones, you know, before Apple launched their iPhone? Who had predicted, you know, the sort of applications that you now have on mobile phones 5 or 6 years ago? So don't try and predict what's happening, but be there, what is happening, participate in what's happening, so that you are well positioned to take advantages of these new changes in order to protect and increase and develop your business in whatever direction that's going to take you.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Paul. I mean, I like the reality check, and that is looking at your own situation and being very honest about it. And I think there's a lot of people that maybe don't embrace that as much as they possibly should. A question in from Brent. You mentioned some of the roadkill along the superhighway, the Kodaks and Nokias, and I guess BlackBerry in the headlines recently. But it spotted that Microsoft was on that list as well. I guess just drilling a little bit more into what's forming your views on that front.
Yeah, I think that, well, with lots of those companies, it's not a matter of, you know, that tomorrow they will die. Yeah, Microsoft is a giant. You know, that's definitely not a company that's going to die overnight. Furthermore, nearly all computers in the world rely on Microsoft for one way or another. So they can milk their old system for as long as they want, unless somebody else with a brilliant sort of new Windows, you know, are coming up to the market and revolutionize that whole industry again. And again, cloud computing will facilitate gigantic changes into the way that we use software and the way we use ICT and IT in particular. And if you then start looking at what is happening at the moment, yeah, then Microsoft is definitely no longer a leader in that field. Yeah, they have an extremely strong business because of the old world and the way that we still for a long time will be tied into Windows-based programs. But you know, if at a certain stage an iPhone development happens on the level of computing, yeah, personal computing and office computing, then you could see that within a very short period of time the whole thing will change from, for example, a Windows-based to a totally cloud-based. Google, Amazon, Facebook, God knows whoever, yeah, comes with a new innovation that starts replacing the way of we are running this situation. Now, in line with that is the development of fiber to the home networks, because you know you will have to have a much better network than we have now. So a lot of these developments, these massive developments, will depend on the quality of the network, the infrastructure that's available. It is nearly impossible to do everything that we can envisage now that can be done in the cloud based on the copper infrastructure that we have currently. So you do need to have this fiber infrastructure in the developed world. You know, the mobile network will not be able to handle that capacity. You do need the fixed network for that, and for example, mobile stations will be connected to the fiber optic network in people's neighborhoods. Also for the mobile network, you do need fiber networks. So a lot of things have to happen in parallel. So in parallel, when you have better broadband, in parallel, it's more sophisticated cloud computing, in parallel, better security, privacy on the ICT front. You know, all of that in parallel moves forward towards that environment where that would be possible, that, for example, you see a massive change in the way that we use our computers. And that's, in a situation like that, that's where I believe that Microsoft has been running too far behind, and that other companies are having a better chance to move forward. Now, I'm not saying that Microsoft is dead. You know, they can still change. But if you look at the management changes at the moment, you know, then there is a lot of uncertainty within the Microsoft company that would make me sufficient optimistic to say, you know, you can count on Microsoft forever. They can change, but they really have to go further in that transformation. Look how far they are behind in mobile. They are clawing back a little bit, you know, but you still talk about a few percentage of mobile phones based on Windows rather than, you know, the massive sort of advantage that Android and Apple have at the moment. So yes, there is, you know, they are not written off yet, but they have to be they're on the, in my opinion, they are on the endangered list.
Yeah, I think the difference in them from others that you mention is that they recognise it and are doing things about it. Some of those others, in denial for a little bit too long, fighting rearguard actions, as you mentioned earlier. Another interesting one from Stephanie. And this is, I guess, converting into the physical world, but the winner in all of this seems to be, you know, the stores are closed, the warehouses are massive, everyone's doing transactions online, but at the end of the day, the goods still need to be delivered. So the freight business must be surely rubbing their hands together and succeeding in making bucket loads of money, but they don't seem to be in the headlines on that front. Why is that?
No, I think, you know, that you can, to a certain extent, if you follow the fortunes of the national postal systems, you know, Australia Post and New Zealand Post or whatever, then you see that, you know, they have totally transformed their businesses. You know, they are totally now relying on all the eBay freight that goes around the world and the packages that are now sent with electronic equipment directly from Korea or Taiwan or whatever, or the sneakers that are coming in a box from America or whatever. Yeah, so absolutely, the freight companies, the postal companies are flourishing in this particular environment, and you see them, you know, like taking digital mailboxes. I'm not saying that will be successful, but, you know, they are trying to tap deeper and deeper into that market of the digital economy. So they clearly understand the importance of the digital economy, and they are absolutely flourishing. And perhaps, you know, because they are not really sexy sort of upfront marketing companies, they're a little bit in the background, but thank you very much. They're doing, you know, real good business at the moment.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
not
interesting.
quite sure,
Carry on.
I'm sorry, Stephanie, I'm not quite sure if I answered your question. Perhaps you meant something different. If that's the case, please let me know.
Simon raises a question as well, and again, it's about probably more in a B2B context versus the B2C that we tend to get the headlines. But you mentioned email, messaging, social media, and then voice as the top four interactions. Where do people come into this and face-to-face time, and is that level of trust that's established through those relationships, how does that sit?
First of all, I think behind all these four media that I just mentioned are people. Yeah. So you know, I'm using Flickr, you know, as a hobby for photos, and you know, I'm just delighted if I've got a question. I send an email, I get a personal email. Hi, Paul, how are you? And this is you know, this is John, or this is Caroline, or whatever. And I sent an email back, and you know, to John or Caroline, and I mean, whatever way they do it, yeah, that might be a large automation behind it. I get the feel that I'm very personal contact. I get an email back within half an hour when I send it. You know, that it delights me. Yeah. So personal contact is not necessarily that you have to have face-to-face contact. Yeah. So there still is personal contact in the way that you send your emails, you do your messaging, and you know, all the other social media and things like that. So it really is that opportunity. I had a complaint with Unilever, one of the companies, just privately, nothing business-wise. And I went to their website. I was really angry about a particular product, and I wrote an email, and then half an hour later I get an email back from this lady, and very nice email, and hey, she immediately changed my behavior, not because of the product problem I had, but because the way she very personally, very apologetic, very sincere came back to me in that area. So personal contact, it can be done electronically in that way. Nevertheless, yes, absolutely face-to-face. For example, my business, selling research to all over the world. We've got customers in 80 countries and what have you. Yeah, I hardly ever see any of my customers. But I make an effort, for example, in Australia to be at CeBIT and have, and give presentations in CeBIT. And people can actually then see me, see me. They talk to me, or they see emails, or they hear me on the radio or television. But then I'm there at CeBIT, and people, I enjoy it. I enjoy meeting my customers there, and of course the customers enjoy having a possibility to see me face to face. So look at the opportunities at conferences. Look at opportunities at shows. Look at opportunities, at events or whatever. Depends. Again, where are your customers? My customers are at CeBIT. I go to CeBIT. Your customers are wherever they are. Be there. Make sure that you are there personally and have that opportunity to have that face-to-face contact. Again, it comes back knowing your customers, know where they are, be at events. Yeah, it could be a Christmas party. It doesn't always have to be business sort of thing. Could be, in that, because really with that personal contact, you want to be in a more relaxed environment, because the business to business can be done by phone, by email, etc. Why you want this face-to-face contact is not to try and sell the customer something. It was have a good time with your customer, build up trust, have fun, in a way that is good for personal relationship, trust, etc. So look at those opportunities, build those opportunities. I sometimes organize drinks at my office and invite 15 or 20 people and say at 5 o'clock, come and have a drink at my office, and so look at these opportunities where you have that face-to-face opportunity.
That's a great answer. Thanks, Paul, and I think a very nice way to finish up. We're just heading to the top of the hour, so we'll draw things to a close. Thank you very much, Paul, for your presentation and for your very thoughtful answers. Apologies, folks, there are a few questions there that I didn't get to. There'll be some that we can come back directly to you on, but thank you for those that did raise questions and for your engagement. I'll just grab
Hayden?
Yes, Paul?
I'm more than happy if people have another question, send me an email. I'm more than happy to answer them. So, happy to be part of the follow-up, Hayden.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Paul. I've got your contact details up on a slide as we finish up. So just hold on, people, if you wanted to do that. We'll have his details showing any moment. Just skip through. Okay, just as we close, as I mentioned earlier, the $10 voucher, we need to mail that out, so just make sure that your mailing address is correct. There's a survey that pops up just as you leave the webinar in a separate browser session, so please do answer that and let us know your feedback. There's an opportunity there to opt in. There's a full report that Paul has kindly provided to us to supply if you're interested in reading more on this topic and delving in a little deeper. Then just let us know in the survey. And equally, sponsor UXE Eclipse, keen to talk to anyone in the audience who are interested in some of the omni-channel retailing. They've got a significant capability in that space and a depth of different products that they can bring to play there. So there's an option to tick the checkbox if you want to talk with UXE Eclipse, who are our sponsor today. If you don't know UXE Eclipse, they're a significant player in the Microsoft Dynamics, particularly AX, but a number of other Microsoft solutions and solutions from other partners. They've got 14 offices around the world and about 1,300 customer sites. across Australia, New Zealand primarily, but also USA, Canada and Fiji. They're owned by UXC, which is listed on the Australian Stock Exchange. And very thankful to them today for making the session possible. There's their contact details up there if you do want to get in touch, and as I say, there's a checkbox in the survey, so let them know if you're interested in talking more on the e-retailing, e-commerce. So that will draw us to a close. There's Paul's contact details there, and if you're interested in the Lunchbox series or having a pass in another one of these sessions, then get in touch with me as well. But otherwise, thank you very much for your attendance today, and have a great day, and I think take some of the advice from Paul in terms of getting out there and mixing it with your customers over the lead into Christmas. We do have one more Lunchbox before Christmas, the 4th of December, so watch out for that in your inboxes. Thanks everyone, I'll close it there.